Welcome back to the We Valiant Feud podcast. I'm your host, Crossfire, here again with
Slapshot,
Raptor,
Blackbeard,
Panther.
And today we will be discussing the 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendments for the Constitution and of the Bill of Rights. So 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendments, go. Alright, so I guess we'll do the usual. Start off with a reading.
Yeah, we can take that straight from the Cornell Law University site if you have that up. If not, I
have the here. It's right here.
Okay, all right.
So this is a bit of a long one. So the 5th Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, unless on a presentment. There we go. Sorry. Or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land of naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
So,
Extremely long.
very long, but in a nutshell, right to a grand jury forbids double jeopardy, requires due process, and to be compensated for your use of
your land.
Yeah, essentially.
So that would fall back partially underneath like the 4th Amendment, how we were talking about how they can't just go in and take stuff from you.
Right.
So that's kind of like a continuation for that. So they use your house, it's like they got to pay you for it or whatever, you know.
Oh, also there's I plead the 5th, so no person shall be held to answer for if they're being charged for capital.
It basically says you don't have to testify against yourself if you're held for a crime. That's where your Miranda warnings come in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it establishes the protection against self-incrimination. So if you're sitting there and you're saying something, they can't be like, oh wow, he said this, without having it be just. So like you said, that goes into the Miranda rights, and
yes.
I think that you as a active duty police officer really can attest to that.
Yeah. So there's a big confusion with the Miranda warnings as well. So everybody's watched cop shows, right?
Yeah,
Probably
of course.
the Miranda warnings.
Yeah,
you have the right to remain silent. All that stuff. Anything you can say, anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you don't have an attorney present with you, you have one provided for you. All that good stuff. So those weren't established until I think the 70s. Can we pull that up?
Yeah, I actually have the case. It was Miranda versus Arizona. Yeah, which was in...
It's at the top.
Yeah, it argued February 28th through March 1st, 1966, and then decided June 13th, 1966. So that's what established that.
Yeah, so before that, you didn't have those. But the thing is, it's funny when I arrest people and I just take them straight to jail and don't read them their rights. That's what they always yell at me. You didn't read me our rights. I'm going to sue you, blah, blah, blah. I do not have to read you your rights if I'm not asking you any questions. So that's where the 5th Amendment comes in. You have the right not to incriminate yourself. So if I have all the evidence against you already and I'm just taking you straight to jail, no Miranda warnings. But if I arrest you and I need more information off you to build my case, then the Miranda warnings come in and you have to sign a waiver of your rights to talk to me because you have a right to have an attorney present while questioning. So you have to waive all that stuff just for us to talk to you to gather more intel off you.
So if someone says, if someone doesn't agree to that, you can't question on the spot, you just take them right in.
Yeah, so if I have questions for him, I read him his rights, and all he has to say is, I want my lawyer.
That shuts it down immediately.
Done. Cannot ask him any questions after that. Even if he changes his mind.
Because he said no initially, that means it's done.
His or her, I shouldn't be. I arrest a lot of women, too.
Yes.
So there's in terms of self-incrimination, that's, I guess, why is that important today? What?
Yeah, does that happen?
Oh my God, all the time.
So can you give an example of that being general?
Yeah, so basically it's I advise anybody, and my group of friends or anybody, if you get stopped and held by the police, you ask for a lawyer immediately. Because, like your warnings say to you, anything you say can will be held against you in court of law. So, I'm trying to think of the best case where that happened. Had some coked out meth head. Got him for DUI. But we were called to his car because it broke down in the middle of the road. And he ended up coming back to it. So, we take him in, arrest him for DUI and everything. And we got him to admit to us that he was driving the vehicle. Without him admitting to that, we don't have him for DUI because we don't place him in the car. So, not only during questioning by the police, you have the right not to testify against yourself in court. So, you don't have, like, the prosecution cannot call on you to go up and testify. You have to voluntarily go up and give your side of the story.
Does that fall into, like, whenever you see in, like, court dramas and stuff like that, whenever they say, like, objection or, like, if...
No, that's just criminal procedure.
Okay.
So, you have your exam... they call a witness. They ask them their questions. The other side has a chance to cross-examine.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, the original side has a redirect. So they each have up to 2 opportunities to talk to you while you're on the stand. So when you're testifying, especially a lawyer's going to harp on whatever you say on the stand. It can be, look, if you ever watched the O.J. Simpson trial, anything on the O.J. Simpson trial, that's like the best example of cross-examination, of lawyers harping on little things, and even the interview process is something to not do because the officers involved in the O.J. Simpson trial were in awe that is O.J. Simpson. In an interview process, you harp on the irregularities. You find an irregularity in somebody's statement, and you attack that. Like he said, he had his Bentley or his Bronco when he came to pick up his, I think it was his daughter. And he's like, yeah, I came to pick her up in the Bentley, and this, and this. He's like, oh, okay, around what time did you come there? It's like, oh, around 8 p.m. I came down in the Bronco. Like, wait, you said Bentley. Which one is it? So the irregularities in the statement are a huge indicator of lying. And they just moved right past it. You can pull up on YouTube, anybody who wants to, the interview of O.J. Simpson. It's god-awful.
So they
completely
ignore the...
Completely ignore.
It's pretty cut and dry that he blatantly lied and and they just passed over whatever evidence that they had.
Exactly, yeah. Then another thing is the credibility of the officers as well. So whenever an officer testifies, he has to be open and honest in everything he says. And I can't remember the officer's name, the detective's name, but they asked him if he ever said the N-word. And he's like, no, never. The defense went out and got a recording of him dropping the N-bomb like all the time, and just destroyed his credibility to the jury. Because you got to remember, you're pleading your case, both sides, the defendant and the prosecution. You're pleading your case to a group of 12 people.
Yeah, your peers. Yep.
Yeah, and you have to convince those 12 people that either he did or did not do this crime.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you swear an oath.
Yeah.
To not lie.
Exactly.
And then if you lie, then it just kind of destroys your credibility. Yeah.
And if you destroy your credibility in court, you destroy your career.
Yeah, because at least jury trials, they have to be unanimous.
Yes. Yeah. Or else it's a hung jury. So there's a difference between double jeopardy as well. So if you have a hung jury, you can have a retrial for the same crimes. But if you're acquitted, if the jury finds you not guilty, they cannot charge you with that same crime ever again for that specific person. Let's go with murder. You're on trial for killing this certain person, right? You get found not guilty. Making a murder is a great thing for this because he was overturned and everything. You murder somebody else, it doesn't mean you can't be ever charged with murder again. It's just you can never be charged with murdering that person again.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So that actually could be a bad thing too. I mean, it's good in 90% plus of all things, but what happens if they go through the trial, find this person not guilty, and then X amount of time later, there's more. information come up.
If there is an exception to that rule. If there's clear-cut evidence, let's say a video, you can see your face perfectly, of you killing that person, then you can be found guilty. They'll reopen the case. But it has to be clear-cut evidence.
Oh, so it's not so much getting tried again. It's just revisiting the case.
Like they can't. It has to be to the point where it's basically proven that the jury was wrong.
Yep.
Through whatever means of fact, whether that be a video or whatever.
And then, exactly.
Okay, I didn't know that was a mechanism that was built into it. Okay,
and that would only make sense because same thing for people that got tried and found guilty for stuff they didn't do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess
what about forensics though? Like if that comes into play and they like with technology.
That's more so what I was thinking about. So like, say something happened pre-forensics and they come up with, because I've seen it happen a couple times where it's like something happens and then X amount of time later it's like, oh well, forensics and DNA things and computers and stuff all make it. It's like, oh well, it's pretty obvious that this was your fault.
It has to be like conclusive.
Yeah.
It can't be like.
Can't be like just evidence.
Yeah,
type
it has to be like 99.9%. This DNA evidence. There's 1 in like 3 billion chance that you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like that. So what it really prevents is like, say you have attorney X that sues you and it doesn't go through. No, there can't be another group sue you for the same thing. Yeah, that makes sense.
But on the flip side of that, O.J. Simpson's a great example of that as well. He was found not guilty of the criminal trial, but Nicole Simpson's family took him to civil court, and he lost. So that double jeopardy doesn't come
because they're two separate systems. Well, they're not only
it would be a completely different trial. For a different thing.
Civil's basically for money.
Right.
So he doesn't face any jail time for being found guilty there, but he had to pay like millions of dollars or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, so that applies. So back to what we were saying that originally started this is like the questioning that applies when you arrest somebody, you have to ask questions. That also applies in jail too. So like if there's I don't want to say just the questioning room, whatever, I don't know what that's actually called. Interrogation room. Yeah. So like when somebody goes into that, that's where the Miranda rights are written off, and it's the same thing again.
Correct.
Because I forget there was one case that I was following up on. I was reading about it. I can't remember the details, but I remember the guy. They were going through and like they were going to interrogate him because he had the irregularities in this thing, and they were making some headway with it. And like that's my view is like they're making headways, and he's like, yeah, I want a lawyer, and it just shut everything down immediately.
Exactly.
Have you guys, I mean, I know you've been to court, but like, have you guys ever been on juries at all? Like done jury duty or whatever?
No, not to this point in my life, no.
I have not either.
Yeah, I did once. It was going through, and I didn't actually get to the full jury side of things, but I was in the room with all the people because they get a whole bunch of people all together at once, and they're going to start
because you have to have alternates and everything like that.
Yeah, so I went through all that. It took me. I missed all kinds of work it was totally from like 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. I was sitting in this room with my suit on and stuff like that, just sitting there, just like, oh, come on. And they let us go for a lunch break, but we were sitting there just super, super boring going through, and they were like asking a bunch of questions like, are you going to discriminate against this person? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then it came down to not actually. They didn't actually need me for it, so I didn't actually sit on the jury itself. But I went through all the questions. They gave me it was a ridiculous amount of questions. But that was probably 6 or 7 years ago. I can't remember off the top of my head what they asked.
Because I've never done jury duty, and I was curious if anyone else had.
I'm wondering in like whenever you get called in for jury duty, like is there a specific like setup for like what kind of sort of court you're going in for? Like is it like that predetermined? Like okay, or
they call you for a case.
Yeah, but I didn't know if they only call you for like small petty crimes or
or if you go to trial.
As long as it's not like I state level or like Supreme Court, of course, those are different.
Yeah,
but like I'd say
I was meaning like if you like, are
It would
you
be called
could
the court of common pleas.
yeah, please.
yeah, because I just didn't know if like if you could be called into court and you know you'd be dealing with like a murder case or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, then,
you
yeah.
don't know what you're
Like,
going to
any case that has a jury, which civil cases have juries too, or is it just criminal?
You know what? I don't know about civil cases.
I don't know the answer. I know criminal for
Criminal.
sure do.
Criminal, you could either have a jury trial or a non-jury trial. And a non-jury trial is where the judge hears the evidence. And
Well,
he makes this deciding factor.
That's like a magistrate level thing.
No, I literally had that court of common pleas a couple months ago.
Really?
Mhm.
So is that?
But I think
how
COVID,
was the distinction made?
yeah, and how's that
COVID
decided?
had a lot to do with that.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, that's not. I mean, because in the Fifth Amendment it said you have the right to a jury. So
Yeah.
how does?
Well, the
that-
defendant requested it.
I was just gonna. That's what I was gonna ask. What now? Why would someone not want the jury?
Because
Is that a
you have to
specific-
realize a jury is 12 people.
12 people. You can.
And each side picks 6. Each side picks their jurors. So it can go juries. You can have a slam dunk case, and depending on the jury, they just can throw it out there.
Oh
So,
yeah, imagine that people not actually being able to make conclusive.
Yeah.
It's like
decision.
this sky is blue. You sure about that?
You
It
sure
looks
about
kind of gray today. It's like, come on.
but
But yeah,
a non-jury trial could also work for the defendant a little bit more, depending on your case.
see, that's what I was thinking because it seems like that. It seems like if it was a non-jury trial, depending on the case, of course, that it seems like the defendant could kind of use it to their advantage.
Well, I mean, the whole point of the jury is to get the bad guy. So of course it's supposed to be stacked in the the side of the person that didn't do anything wrong.
You're saying you're
Or,
guilty.
like,
It's like we
you're
haven't
not
even
guilty.
went to the building yet. You're guilty.
The biggest issue between a non-jury and a jury trial is the judge knows law. He knows a lot about it. He's an elected official, yeah, but normally they're either in law enforcement or lawyers, so they know the law to the T usually. Juries have no idea what the law states. So whenever the prosecution rests and the defense rests, and it's time for the jury to make their decision, the judge will read what the actual statute is that they're being charged with, and then they'll explain it to them, and then they have to go. Then they give them the reasonable doubt speech. You have to find beyond a reasonable doubt that this man committed this crime for you to make your decision.
So
And then they'll go in there and deliberate.
So that's okay. So to put it in a simpler term, it would be if it's a non-jury trial, you're looking more so at the pure mechanics of the law. Since
Correct.
the judge knows the mechanics of the law, we'll say perfectly to exclude any variation, so that the judge knows exactly what the law is and fits into that. So this goes back to what we said, a couple podcasts ago. I think it was the first moment we talked about how the physical law and morality don't line up. They're not 100% aligned. So the jury wants to run on morality.
Yeah.
So the jury may, like you said, there may be something that is very clear as day in the way that the law is written phonetically that doesn't make sense to the jury, and they use, I guess vote on emotions.
Yeah, personal opinion.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
like a bias.
So if like something's
That's
illegal,
why.
like you do something illegal, but the jury thinks that it shouldn't be illegal, they can roll you as not guilty.
Like,
Exactly.
I don't know what the case is, but like there was the case, the guy murdered the child molester that molested his daughter.
Yeah.
And the jury was a lot more lenient on him, whereas if it was just a judge pure to pure. And
Yeah.
Of course, judges have the emotional aspect. Just to rule it out for a second, where a judge would be like, "Oh yeah, that's murder. That's it."
Yeah.
But the jury would be like, "Well, you acted because of the etc. on your family." So there's a perfect example
Yeah,
of
that's
that.
not.
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole different crime. It's not premeditated murder or like.
Well, there's different
whatever.
levels
Yeah.
of murder as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
just
it's
one
a
thing off the top of my
passion
head.
crime type
Yeah,
thing.
crime of passion. So capital murder is the serial killers. They plan it out. They know what they're doing. They're going to kill. Like they have a plan. You prove intent. They have intent to kill this person. They go out and kill this person. You can prove all that. That's capital murder.
That's first degree, correct? Okay.
Yeah, it's first degree murder. It's called capital murder, and that's where you can get the death penalty. Then there's 2 levels below that: first degree or second degree and third degree, to where you didn't intend to kill that person, but you still did. So like crime of passion. would be-
manslaughter.
Manslaughter is accidental.
Yeah, would that? Okay.
It's not murder.
That's a different.
That's like
It's
you're
a
driving
different
down the
statute.
street.
Yeah.
Some guy on a motorcycle goes in front of you, and you hit him and kill him.
Or
That's
perfect
manslaughter.
example for manslaughter is kids, 17-year-old kids playing with daddy's gun, accidentally shoots his friend in the face. That's manslaughter. Negligence. So there's 3 different ones: negligence, recklessness, and in purposely. I can't remember the actual word for it. It's intent. Damn, I can't remember. But yeah, so negligence would, if you negligently cost somebody their life, that's manslaughter. Like I have a case going right now, and it's going to be vehicular manslaughter. If I don't want to get into that.
No, I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah. So vehicular manslaughter, you can't. So if you get into a car accident, you're drunk driving, and your passenger dies or the person you hit dies, you can't be charged with murder because you didn't intend to kill that person. You can be charged with vehicular manslaughter though, because it's negligent on your part. You know it's wrong to drive drunk or high or whatever.
Yeah.
And somebody's life was ended in the process.
So what if it's a pure accident? That doesn't really count for any of that, right? That's a total.
Well, it would be just manslaughter.
Yeah, just be
Still
manslaughter.
manslaughter.
So
You still
If you
killed the
caused
person. Yeah.
we have to prove that you
yeah,
caused.
so,
the
no,
person.
so what if it's like some totally outside of your control?
Like person dies.
Yeah, like it's a mechanical failure. I'll use that. Say mechanical failure, and you get in a car accident.
We have a friend that was killed. How long ago was he killed? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, probably about maybe
4 years?
something like that. Yeah, probably about 4 years ago.
Yeah. So we were working with dingleberries
Down yonder.
down yonder. So the instance was he worked for a paving company. He fell behind a semi truck. May or may not have knocked himself unconscious. We don't know. And got ran over by the semi truck.
No, I think I heard
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
So on the driver's part, that's purely accidental.
Oh yeah. How's the driver gonna know?
Yeah, exactly. So he wouldn't be charged with anything. It's pure. And plus, he has to relive that for the rest of his life. So he wouldn't have been charged with anything.
That's the key. Yes, that's what I was saying. Because that's totally a freak accident.
Exactly.
Well, that's the same thing with whenever I heard it all the time. At least in like Fort Hood, a lot. I think it actually happened on Fort Carson too. Kids would be out and like laying on the ground or whatever,
tanks
pulling
run
security, and
over.
a
Yeah.
tank runs them over, or a
That-
Humvee runs them over.
Oh, how could
Like,
you even
that-
know?
that shit
How
happens,
could
yeah.
how could you even know that something like that's going to happen? Especially if you're in like a tank.
And your camouflage laying on the ground.
Hello visibility. Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
I
it
actually
happened-
have a very,
it
very
happened at
close
least once a
story
year.
like to that same instance, because there was a guy that in my unit that got killed during a training exercise, and we were, how they do the live fire. Yeah, well, he ended up, kind of like in Jarhead, like the same instance.
You know about Nick at Night?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
well, the same instance, like he sort of like freaked out and he stood up and.
Well, now at least whenever I went through, they told us that they shoot way over your head. Like even if you stood up, you wouldn't get shot.
I think they're probably in an OP, like a tower.
Yeah, they're in towers. Yeah.
Running the 240.
Well, where
Or
we
the
were
saw.
doing
I don't
it.
know what. I think it was 240 when I was.
I think they had 240 and saw going
Yeah.
whenever I
Yeah,
decided.
because we had the 240 in the saw, but I mean, we were infantry, so stuff was way more.
Yeah,
I
I
guess-
guess there are like you don't want to kill trainees in training. Like that's
Yeah.
not the point.
Yeah,
and
that's. I'm sure that's like.
'Cause
That
I
was.
remember
I mean,
whatever-
everything that happened that night was definitely on him, but
Yeah.
it was like.
It's a freak out.
Yeah, like we said, it's a
because I
big
know
accident.
like even whenever I went through like well especially since when I went through because I wasn't in infantry. There were kids around me that were like stopped and crying and like freaking losing their mind. I was like, bro, just keep freaking going.
Dude, the reason I stopped is because I was so tired.
Oh, I was
It was
incredibly
raining and
crawling
my
forever.
adrenaline was like as soon as because I felt like I was storming the beaches in Normandy. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever.
Oh yeah, my adrenaline was going at first too.
It's literally what it's 100% what it feels
But it
like.
was raining and I'm sitting there crawling.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh,
Through
I'm going under
freaking
this barbed wire and
sand.
then this mud's just dragging into my uniform plus the flak jacket because that's how old I am. We had flak jackets when I went through basic.
Oh man.
Going into my
Jeez.
flak jacket, we had to have our wet weather gear on, so I have all this weight on me, and I'm just dragging my happy ass through the mud. And I just stop and like, and I look up, I see the tracers, and I'm like, this fucking sucks, and just keep going. Sorry for the expletive there.
Yeah.
Delete expletive.
I think there's certain expletives that are appropriate. I think that one definitely is.
Yeah.
There's some that you just need to do for the story. It puts an exclamation point on it.
Yeah.
Man.
Nick at Night is. I mean, basically, it's one of the crazier things you do in basic.
It's great to look back on, and when you're doing it, it sucks.
Well, that was cool.
I'm glad I never have to do it, just like the gas chamber. I'm just glad I never have to do it again.
Oh, I had to do it a bunch of times whenever I was in.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't you volunteer to go in?
Oh, actually, after, yeah. So I was in an EOD unit whenever I was in, and we fall under Seaburn.
Yeah.
So, and our commander was Seaburn, and he was all hoo about it. So we did it a couple times, and I actually got into competition because I worked at Brigade Ep-6, and I got in competitions with our brigade the S2 shop.
Yeah.
To who could stay in the gas chamber the longest.
Say the infantryman's creed.
Was it you that said that your guy that was in charge of the gas chamber was a chemist that knew how to like really push it? Was it?
No. I mean, they're all whenever you go into a gas chamber, they're all chemical soldiers, like the ones that actually set off the gas and whatnot.
Yeah, it must not have been you. That must have been one of the other. I have tons of friends that went through it now, and one of them was like, yeah, the guy who was running it was like, was a really strong, or he really knew like his stuff with his chemistry, so he pushed it to like 5 times what they normally do because he knew that the body could take that into a problem versus like 20 was lethal. So he's like, so we were screwed when he came out of it.
I know there were definitely times where it was stronger, and in times where it was like almost nothing.
Kind of like how like you're measuring stuff for like baking a cake or something.
Yeah.
Just kind of you're like, yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah, but that was an experience.
Well,
but yeah, we with that we're kind of a little off Fifth Amendment. I think we can move on to the.
Yeah, we're good on the Fifth
Yeah,
Amendment.
we're good on the Fifth Amendment.
So
see, that's what makes it so enjoyable. Is like there's actual content. It's life. It's not just this is what we do. Yeah, yeah. So like you said,
Stories to be told.
Stories to be told. Yeah. All right. Moving on to 6. Do you want to read it, or want me to read it?
I can read it. All right. The 6th Amendment. Rights of the accused in criminal prosecution. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witness against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and have the assistance of counsel for his defense.
So that basically establishes the basis of all criminal trials. It outlines that like if you commit a crime in X county, you have to be tried in X county. It sets up the idea that there's a speedy trial, that you aren't going to get tried in 10 years and you have to wait that long for it. And it also sets up there's the impartial jury, which we just talked about in the 5th Amendment a little bit. It also talks about that the way that you have to be tried based on the law that you broke, and it also gives people the right to counsel. Yeah, right to a lawyer. Thank you. Yeah. So if you can't afford a lawyer, one's given to you. That's I think it's part of the.
That's part of the Miranda rights.
Yeah.
So do you still have to pay for a public defender?
No, a public defender is totally free.
And they're
taxpayer funded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that whole process work? Like, how do you become a public defender? Is that just like low-level lawyers?
Just go to law school.
Yeah, you have to go to law school and apply, and you become a public defender. They don't get paid very much
because no one wants to do it.
By the state.
Yeah, exactly. So, 6th Amendment actually lays out the rules for criminal procedure. It was what it's called. But for the public defender thing, all they have to do is because in our state, unless it's what we call a forcible felony, we don't even take them to jail. Even DUIs, we don't take them to jail. We just mail your charges to you. You'll receive a packet from the magistrate. And in that packet, you have to get fingerprinted on your own time. And you have time to obtain a lawyer. And the public defender goes based off your income. So if you make too much money, you have to get your own lawyer. So the public defender is not
An option.
Yeah. So it's more for people that can't afford a lawyer.
Yeah.
So they go based off of your finances. The speedy trial thing goes into that too, because you have how it goes is you'll get your charges usually a week after you get your charges. You set before that too, you have to get arraigned on your charges. An arraignment hearing is you just sit in front of a judge, and the judge tells you this is what you're being charged with. You don't enter a plea. You don't enter anything.
So this
else
is
like
not like a thing where they're you're being charged.
No,
they're just
calling
literally
you and
being
telling you
read
this is
what you're being charged with.
This is what you're being charged with. And then you have a preliminary hearing. And the preliminary hearing is just they look for what's called prima facie evidence. Is Latin for on the face of it is true. So we need minimal evidence. The prosecution does.
Mm-hmm.
Minimal evidence that says that this guy is probably the guy that did this crime. Mm-hmm. So there again, you don't enter a plea. It's just, but you can call witnesses to either defend yourself, or the prosecution can call witnesses to prove the amount of evidence needed to get you through the preliminary hearing. Once the preliminary hearing is done, this is what gets what's called waived to court of common pleas. Mm-hmm. So the preliminary hearing, the arraignment hearing is usually done at the magistrate. Then they'll waive it down to court of common pleas. And this is the big thing. It's usually, I think, 100. You have to have your trial should be within 180 days. I think it is. I have to go over the rules of criminal procedure again. It's like within 180 days, your trials be set. Now that can be delayed by either party. So if the prosecution needs more time, they'll ask for a continuance. And they have to present it in writing to the court. If the defense needs time to gather more evidence or whatever, they'll ask for a continuance. Again, put it in writing, this is why.
And this can be denied, right?
They can be denied, yeah. They're usually granted. They usually give you the benefit of the doubt. But unless those continuances are proceeded through the court, you're going to have a hearing date within probably like 6 months of...
Even if a continuance is filed, you still had the date. So
Yeah,
it was still
You had the
speedily giving you a date.
Yep.
Now, if it's moved around because of X or Y circumstances, it doesn't really affect the fact that
Correct.
date still existed, which is
Correct.
part of the right to speedy trial.
Yep.
Like you said too, how about not holding people? That goes back to a little bit back to the Fifth Amendment, because it says you can't hold them unless they're except for very specific cases. They can't just be held immediately.
Yeah. And what we go by is what's called forcible felonies, armed robbery, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and up from there basically. So felony type
stuff.
charges.
Obvious person is a endangerment to somebody else type stuff. Yeah,
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah. So see all that stuff like that your run on isn't explicitly one thing. It's all part of this package here. Mm-hmm. That's why specifically I thought you'd be a good guest for this one here, because this stuff's all right in line with what you do.
It also says here that this goes into the jury is members of like your peers, because it says
public trial and
impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed.
That's another thing it sets up too, is jurisdictions. So the biggest thing we have it's usually harassment, especially with social media and technology that we have today. The issue we run into is you'll have harassment online, like blatantly harassment, right? But now we have to figure out what jurisdiction is charging them, because the victim might be in my jurisdiction, but the actor might be in a different jurisdiction, and that jurisdiction is the one that's going to charge him, because that's where he resides.
Oh, I can see that makes it complicated.
A bit harder.
Mm-hmm. And then police pursuits are on another thing. So a guy can commit a crime in one jurisdiction, travel across a different county line, and get picked up there, but he needs to be transported back to that county in jurisdiction to be charged.
To extradite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
extradition.
Well, that's the same thing with, like, for instance, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, how he lived in, what was it?
Seattle,
Or not
Wisconsin.
Seattle. Yeah, he lived in Illinois, and he was in Kenosha, and he was not found guilty on anything in Indiana, or they acquitted him of whatever he was charged with in Indiana, and then they extradited him to
Illinois and then took him back to Wisconsin.
Yeah, Illinois.
Yeah.
And then they took him back to Wisconsin, where he currently is at in Kenosha.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where the crime was committed.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that extremely complicates things. And I know, like, even like getting a speeding ticket in a different state, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know that one all too well.
Show up for trial at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's like I live 300 miles away.
Yeah, but I had that issue too when I was coming home from active duty. I got a ticket on the way home. Which messed up too. I was really mad about this. I had like my plaque in the back seat of my car, with a picture of my platoon in Iraq and everything. My duffel bag. I had my maroon beret on the dashboard. My dog tags hanging from the rear view.
Whatever I can do to get out of this.
Ticket. I knew for a fact I was doing 90 the whole way home. I was trying to make an 8-hour drive into a 6-hour drive. Get stopped. I won't call out the state, but I get stopped. Guy asked me, "Why are you going so fast?" And I explained to him. I was like, "Look, dude, I just got off of that. Like, I just got home from Iraq. I just got off active duty. I'm trying to go home. Just trying to make it as fast as possible." He's like, "All right, sit tight." Comes back, $200 fine. Oh, dude. I'm like, come on. So
What
I
a
go
break,
home.
man.
Yeah, right.
Be happy it wasn't
Thank-
400.
Yeah, he's like,
I am the
thank
law.
you for your service. Here's your fucking citation.
Thank you, may I have
Oh,
another?
God.
man. That's
So-
brutal.
And that was my big worry too, because I didn't want to have a warrant out for my arrest because I didn't respond to a citation in some other state.
Yeah.
So I called the magistrate's number. I was like, "Hey, I live in a different state," and they're like, "Well, do you have your state's license?" I was like, "Yeah, I have my state's license." And they're like, "Yeah, just pay the fine. You'll be all right." Paid the fine. It was perfectly fine. So.
Yeah, I know, because I know that, like, the same things happen, like, with my dad and I moving stuff back and forth between states for different businesses or whatnot. And we got pulled over, and it was the same thing. It's like, you need to show up here, 8 o'clock in the morning. It's like, dude, it's like 400 miles away. It's like, I'm not going to do that. So we just call them like, hey, I mean, I have no problem paying the fine. That's not the issue. It's the fact that literally it's going to cost me more to get there to stand for the actual thing than fine. And that's happened a couple times, and they've never ever given an issue with that. It's like, oh yeah, that's just the way it works. So this is it's pretty obvious to see how important this is, especially with having public defense and speedy trial and whatnot. One thing I'd like to flip to is an example of this. There was a case. I don't know if it went to the Supreme Court or not. It was Gideon versus Wainwright. Let's see, is this Supreme Court or not?
I mean, if it's about the amendment, then it would have to be Supreme Court.
Would it have to
not
be?
Yeah.
Well, basically what happened here is this guy here, this Clarence Gideon had a handwritten oh yeah, there he is, to the Supreme Court. Yeah, challenging for conviction because it must have been Gideon versus Florida at that point.
Breaking into a Florida pool hall. He argued that he did not have a fair trial because he had not been given a lawyer to help him with his defense. The court held with the Sixth Amendment protection of the right to counsel meant the government must provide an attorney for accused persons who cannot afford one at public expense. So that is what does that define public defenders? Is that what created public defenders?
I don't know if this particular case here, I don't really think. Well, it's 1963, so it couldn't have created public defenders, could it have? Because that was written into the Sixth Amendment, which was ratified in the late 1700s, where it specifically says, have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So no, this couldn't. This is just one that I just did some research, and this was one of the most notable cases of where it was used. So I don't know if this particular case here.
Probably.
Sixth Amendment, there you go, ratified 1791. Had the right to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Supreme Court has heard several cases about whether poor criminal defendants had a right to a lawyer at public expense, or whether the Sixth Amendment only meant that the government could not stop persons from hiring one, which goes back to what you had said about it goes off your income.
Yes.
So it goes in here. and so they sided with him. It says here, he not getting a fair trial, overturned his conviction, and then I'm assuming that they went back. They just probably redid it again, with the.
Yeah, it says the court's reasons that the right to counsel is fundamental. The court continued, in our system of justice, any person too poor to hire a lawyer cannot be assured a fair trial unless counsel is provided to them.
Yeah, so I mean that's cut. I mean, look, it even says right there, court's decision was unanimous.
Yeah.
And lawyers in criminal courts are necessities, not luxuries.
Yeah, I mean
Yep.
that's
that-
cut and dry. Yeah.
And people who choose to defend themselves, the judge will reiterate that they have a right to a lawyer, and it behooves them to have a lawyer with them.
Any kind of lawyer.
Yeah, because that's their job, man.
Yeah.
They argue law for years.
Yeah, but if you're super stubborn about it, you can still defend
yeah,
yourself.
you can
But I mean,
absolutely
you're gonna
yourself.
get completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you have the right to do that.
It's like a professional hockey player playing against a child.
I have that happen a lot.
Oh no. Yeah.
Ask Blackbeard about it, and we have a couple professionals that come and skate with us, and it's you can tell they're not going as hard as they can when we are going 110%, and it's just if you had any dreams of making it anywhere in hockey, it just destroys all of them.
It's like trying to put a feather and like a 1,000-pound weight on a scale and wondering if they're balanced.
It's not
Exactly.
fair.
It's not fair. You're right.
Makes me cry.
I mean, I think that's about all I wanted to really talk about on the Sixth Amendment, and that's one of those amendments. I mean, once you actually break down the fancy mumbo jumbo that they wrote it in, it's really cut and dry, and it's extremely important. Just like all these other amendments, because like people don't really think too much about them. It's like, wow, these are really important. They're fundamental.
Yeah, and that it goes into it kind of draws similarities to all of the amendments. Like you read some of these amendments where it's like so cut and dry and obvious to like everyone that has a sane brain that like of course you should have a jury and a lawyer and right to a trial and whatever. But then you look at other amendments where they're just like, no, you shouldn't have the right to do that, like the Second Amendment and a lot of people like that. So it's kind of to me it's kind of funny that they don't weigh a lot of these amendments. Some people don't weigh these amendments in the same way.
Because like, I mean, really, before we started digging into these, I didn't realize that that's what the Sixth Amendment did. You know, I mean, we probably learned it back in grade school or whatnot, but I mean, how long ago is that? I don't remember it. But looking into it, it's like, wow, a lot, like you said, a lot of people don't even consider these, and they just expect that
they
to
just
be
know
the thing. Which this is
they don't see it as the amendment. They just see it as like that's just what I get.
and that luxury is like afforded to us here in this country.
Yeah.
That's not something.
Every person in this country.
Well, it's not that way for other people. So, like, if you live in a different country, that's not something that's obvious. Whereas a lot of people just take it for granted here.
What's the country I'm thinking of? It's blatantly. I think it's England. It might be. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but it's blatantly illegal to speak out against their government.
Their government. Oh yeah. I mean,
it's
I'm sure there's
There's-
tons of
there's
countries.
several countries like that. I think Germany would probably be something like that too, because they have a lot of speech enforcement
that's
type
the same.
stuff.
Russia.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the
Russia's definitely like that.
That's the
whole
First
point of it.
Amendment, yeah.
First,
Yeah.
like that allows you to yell on Twitter and be
So
angry.
whenever you, where I was getting at with that is when they're taken in for these petty crimes that to us we take for granted all the time. They don't have that right to somebody representing them. It's just them standing on trial. Somebody's yelling at you. You did this, blah 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 blah, and they go to jail.
Yeah, and they have no chance. Like
No
these
chance
people
whatsoever.
do, like we said, the whole
It's
hockey
just
player
you
thing.
for like hours on end, just getting grilled, and then
you
you
admit
have
to a
nothing-
crime
you
that
have
you
no
never
defense.
did.
Yeah, you have no defense, and you're just like, okay, take me away, because like, what are you gonna do? Like, obviously the odds are stacked against you.
Nice
so
talk. Now
you're
off the gulag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Russia and Korea are perfect examples because they don't have trials. North Korea, especially, they do not have
Oh,
trials.
yeah,
You
they
just go to jail.
They just kill you.
Yeah, or they just
I think jail's probably the easy
the
part.
best. Yeah, the best option.
Labor camp for you.
You look like you could build monuments. I mean, but that's serious.
Yeah. Actual countries do this for, like China, for instance. If you paid attention to any news, Disney filmed of Mulan at a concentration camp. Something that we swore that we would never allow to happen again on our watch, and it's sitting there blatantly. And Disney's like, "Oh yeah, loving family Disney show in Chinese gulag concentration camp."
Yeah, it's like then you go to some of these Middle Eastern countries, and you get caught stealing, chop your hand off.
Yep.
Oh my god, man! If a woman gets caught,
Eye for an eye.
yeah, if a woman even gets caught looking at another man when they're married, they get literally stoned to death.
Yeah.
That are showing their face.
Stoned to death, or like people like dump
Listen, don't bring that up
buckets
again.
of acid on people.
It's like you got a guy sitting there that has like Parkinson's, trying to like turn the valve, like trying to adjust it. It's like, so instead of like finally adjusting, just cranks it to one side or the other.
I'm glad somebody else was gonna laugh at that, not just me.
It's like oh, sorry, I accidentally didn't pay my taxes. Imprisonment for thousands of years. It's like well,
And people are even like saying that the Constitution is outdated and not relevant. Like, if you look at our Constitution, and especially whenever you talk about our jury trials and stuff like that, in comparison to other places in the world and history, like looking back even to like feudal England or stuff like that, it's paramount.
Yeah, a lot of our law procedures are based off of English. It's English law is what it is. So a lot of our criminal procedures are based off of things that have been around for years.
Yeah, no,
years before our country.
Yeah, like we've iterated before, the Constitution didn't really make anything new. It just
stated
what was obvious to them, but it never amazes me how much foresight that our founding fathers had, that they're like, well, this may come into question sometime in the future. And here we are 200 and almost 50 years later, and this stuff is like, some of this stuff does come into question. It's amazing to me that they had enough foresight to write all this into it to protect for that. That's just bewildering.
And they even stated in the preamble, we are granted these unalienable rights.
Yeah.
It's almost like they had a DeLorean and a flux capacitor.
I believe it was Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons.
There's serious stuff about that. That's ridiculous.
I don't watch The Simpsons, but I know there's there's a lot of things that happen in The Simpsons that happens in the future.
Yeah,
somehow.
Well, I think that was a pretty big tangent. I think we can wrap up with the 7th Amendment. This one's really super cut and dry.
Yeah, we probably already talked about some of it.
But
I've been pretty quiet most of the night, just kind of been listening in, just kind of hearing what Panther has to say for the majority. So I'm going to take a read on the 7th here. No, you're good. I just don't have a whole lot of questions. I'm just listening in and taking. I'm just transcribing everything that you're reading off. So so we'll move into the 7th Amendment. The 7th Amendment states from the Cornell Law site, in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. So
we basically touched on all that already. That's just saying that you have the right to a jury. It specifies $20.
If the value of the controversy exceeds $20, then you have the right to it. And let's look at inflation of what $20 was in 1791.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what I guess. So this doesn't even go back that far. Oh, there we go. 1635.
Jesus.
So this would be 1791 is when that was ratified. So $10 or $20. $20 would be
half a cent.
That is
$550.
Essentially.
2,600%.
Jesus.
Oh man. Yeah. Powdered wig. But
powdered wig.
Yeah, but
so the 7th Amendment is just like it's the right to civil claims to be tried before a jury. Only governs federal civil courts, I believe.
Is that adjusted? Is that adjusted for inflation, or like the $20? Because I know it's written in there, but like I'm thinking most cases under like $500 never really go to trial. They just pretty much decided.
I'm trying to think of actual laws that are misdemeanors, which would be a jury trial. And I think
that still seems extremely accurate.
Yeah, I think it is extremely accurate because let's take retail theft for an example. Anything under $150 is just what's called a summary offense, and it's a citation. So there's no trial. You plead not guilty and everything, but it's just a hearing in front of the magistrate.
So that'd be magistrate, yeah.
Yeah. So
I stole
anything,
like I stole this bubble gum,
Yeah. Now your criminal history comes into play with that as well, but I'm pretty sure that still stands true. I think it's $150 or less, because I literally just did that. $150 or less is a summary offense, so $150 to $200. I can look it up right now.
It falls under petty crime.
Well,
I said no. That was what falls under petty crime or petty theft.
Retail theft, stuff like that.
Okay, so it's the same thing.
A
Okay.
buddy of mine who worked in retail said that if they see somebody shoplifting, they can't stop them.
Well, that happens all the time.
That's because of the
Walmart,
security
Black
of the
Friday.
person.
Oh, that's eco-terrorism.
Of the person who's working there. That has nothing to do with the actual crime per se. It's that if someone's stealing something, there's obviously something potentially wrong with them. Obviously potential, yeah. But it's more so to protect
the employee.
person, the employee.
And
that
so
way,
then they're not lying. Like it's not your money that they're stealing.
Right.
and the company can write it off as shrink and then go through the process.
Less than
and whatnot.
150. It's a misdemeanor if it's a second offense. Sorry. $150 or more is a misdemeanor of the first degree.
You said $150
Yep.
is a misdemeanor to first degree.
And a
Okay.
felony if it exceeds $1,000.
Jeez.
Man,
So that could happen pretty fast.
it depends on what you're going for. Because
Still PS5 and an Xbox One, and
Wait.
now you got a felony.
Yeah.
Wait. So is it like all in one go or in total? So like, let's say I steal $150 today, $150 tomorrow. Okay.
Well, then that again falls into history.
Well, that
so
would-
if you
that
got,
would be two
if you still,
independent
yeah.
So
So if you
misdemeanor
be
of the second
convicted,
degree if it's less than $150 and it's a second offense. So it's a misdemeanor after yours. Like, so you get one freebie basically.
Count your blessings.
and then like
Yeah.
eventually, if you've stolen like every 10 days after you go to trial and are committed or convicted of that crime, I'm sure the more you go, the worse it gets.
Yeah, and that happens with any crime you commit. Honestly,
this is your 600th offense.
that goes in
This
if your license is suspended and you're caught over 6 times driving without a license, it becomes a misdemeanor.
That's a lot of times.
Yeah, you get a lot of times, but if you're suspended DUI related, it's a misdemeanor after your second offense.
How many times is it then it's a felony with a DUI?
With DUI,
Is it 5?
I can look it up right now.
Wait, DUIs aren't felonies?
Oh, after your third offense for DUI is a felony.
Oh, okay.
But I was referring
thought-
to
For
the whole driving without a license under DUI suspension.
Let me get a traffic law.
So if you have a DUI and you get caught driving, the first time they'll let you go,
No,
or you get a misdemeanor for it.
the first time it is a summary offense.
Okay.
10 years in prison.
Yes. So
Go
person
on.
who drives a motor vehicle on the highway traffic. Blah, blah, blah,
Unless you
blah,
say
blah.
sorry.
Unless
you say
You
sorry.
pay a fine of $500 and undergo imprisonment for a period of not less than 60 days.
Oh,
Are you
okay.
sorry?
Second violation
It wasn't me.
It's like the end of the
is a
movies.
summary offense, but you pay a fine of $1,000, not less than 90 days. Third or subsequent is a misdemeanor in the third degree, 6 months in prison.
Oh,
Oop.
we're getting up there.
$5,000, 2 years,
Only $5,000. That's
still a
not a big deal.
misdemeanor.
It's still a misdemeanor.
That's an expensive misdemeanor.
It's like, it sounds like Monopoly.
Go directly.
Yeah, it doesn't become a felony, but you just get.
You just
But then
progressively pay a lot more.
Your license also gets suspended for
Even longer.
every time. Yeah, every
Right.
time you
Probably
do it.
for
it just-
smaller things too.
Yep.
Like
judge.
if you got a DUI and then you get you don't get caught with a DUI, or maybe you have 2 DUIs and you don't get caught with a DUI, but you get caught speeding. Like
Yeah, that's
like
what we charge.
50 over, and then
Yeah.
you get charged with speeding, and then you may, like, you're probably gonna get
Yeah.
something more.
The leniency goes down.
Yeah.
We have that all the time. You run a stop sign. Oh, my license is suspended. Why is your license suspended? Oh, I got a DUI last year. Oh, well, now you're facing 60 days in prison.
Oh, yeah, you just admitted to it.
Yeah.
Fifth
Well,
Amendment.
I'm going to run their license anyway, so as soon as I run their license, it's going to come
Yeah,
back
you're
and
gonna
tell me
find
to
out.
do it. Yeah, and then I have to get the certified driving record and all that.
There is more on this screen than I can physically write down, so you have some serious problems.
And then
buddy.
usually they don't show, and they get a bench warrant for their arrest.
The good old
They're
sheriff.
bounty hunters. Bounty house.
I'm the dog, the big bad dog,
Oh,
bounty
wait,
hunter.
See, I went South Park in that direction.
It's all the same. In the end.
Beth, bear mace that guy.
Bear mace.
Well, I mean, I think that about wraps up the 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendments. You guys got anything else to add?
No, I mean, these amendments are pretty clear cut and dry. There's really not a whole lot of debate or
Controversy.
controversy to really go over, or a whole lot of conversing to really go over, other than just some simple cases to review why they exist and just kind of explaining why they are in place and still. So, I mean, we covered all of
To
that.
this
We're
day,
good.
yeah.
But they're very important.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
as
of
important
course,
as
yeah.
every other one of them.
Yeah.
It's just, it seems like only, people remember like 1 through 3 and they're like, oh, that's all of them. And then everything else behind it is just,
A lot of
is
people
that?
don't remember that these are the Bill of Rights. The first
Yeah.
10 amendments, the
Yes.
Bill of Rights that our forefathers
This
made
came
with the Constitution.
with the Constitution. This was the first not even DLC. It was
DLC.
It came with the game.
I love the analogy.
It came with the game.
Yeah, this is your first $60 right here.
Yeah. This is what you paid for. I do have one thing to add, though. We have a Discord.
Oh, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, he's going to say it.
Yeah, we have a Discord that you can talk to us, ask us questions, all that jazz. If whatever podcast platform you're listening to us to, you can probably listen to us on a whole bunch of other podcast platforms. So check us out. Our Anchor. We're on YouTube now.
I was gonna
are
push
on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Yep.
We are on YouTube. We Valiant Few. Just look us up there, and you can listen to us. We got a cool graphic thing going on there.
and tell a friend.
Yeah, tell your friends if you're
Tell your
watching this
friends.
and you find this stuff interesting, or especially if you have something to say about us that we should do better, or
Yeah,
we're doing well.
Even if you disagree.
Yeah, even if you disagree, like we
I'd
love.
like to have some people disagree with some of us so that there's actual productive conversation if you want to know the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to join our Discord and talk shit on us, like, we aren't going to hate you for it. We won't kick you out for it. Just
Unless you're
seriously.
mean.
Unless
If
you're
Just be an
Unless
adult.
you're
Just be
Yeah.
an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unless you hurt my feelings.
Yeah, unless my feelings are destroyed.
you hurt my.
And I have one of them.
Yeah.
So be soft.
Oh.
With that, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Yeet.